what it takes to actually start a podcast.
Yeah.
Again, you can DIY it, and so we're gonna like talk through like all the different steps it kind of takes. And so, yeah, what's the first concept here is the idea.
Yeah.
The idea. What is the idea of a podcast?
Yeah. Well, I think you kind of touched on it earlier, which is really interesting. Like the idea of having some sort of podcast that follows a meta narrative of your industry.
Right.
So like, you like to refer to the Pro Church Tools podcast, which talks about marketing, even though they're a website building company,
right?
But marketing for churches. So like, how can you create a podcast that is really interesting to your audience that makes them want to learn more, and then also say in the end, oh, this could be something that I could find interesting.
Right.
But if they're struggling with the idea, but you know you really want to use podcasting as a medium, you can help them with that.
Yes. And I think one of the big, like as I think about what makes a good podcast, usually whatever that meta narrative is, like a lot of times there's a bad guy. Like,
oh yeah.
What is the change your organization wants to see in the world? Mm-hmm. So for Pro Church Tools, they really wanted to see bad communication go away. Yeah. They wanted to equip pastors, people in the church to communicate better so that there wasn't this hindrance, so that people could actually hear the message of Jesus and not like get confused about this thing or that thing. And so, yeah, like who is your bad guy? What's the thing that you want to see change in the world? Yeah. What's the thing that you can talk for days about? Yeah. Like those sorts of things. Figure out what is that thing that your audience would want to hear. What's going to provide value for them?
Yep.
Because you have to be, a podcast cannot be just about you.
Yeah.
It has to be talking about the things that your audience cares about if you want them to keep listening.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's that classic Donald Miller hero's journey style thing. Like, you make your customer the hero, not yourself. Yep. You are the guide that gets them to the place that the hero wants to be.
Yes.
So the same way with the podcast, you are trying to share useful and listenable information to these people who are on the other side of the screen, other side of the speakers, whatever, and help them change their life and and guide them to a whole nother level.
Yes.
And so the next idea is like the setup, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So like, kind of like, where are all the places that your podcast is actually going to live? Mm-hmm. So you have to set up Apple Podcasts. You have to set up Spotify for podcasters. You have to set up your YouTube channel. You know, there's
like a bajillion podcasting sites. So like tons of those things you have to set up everywhere.
Exactly. And so there's quite a few things, and you need the graphics for it. You need the descriptions. You know, like there's a lot of different things.
Oh, and maybe like the skills of like editing and all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. Like being able to work Canva or Adobe Express or whatever, and figuring out those things. If you can have the best podcast ever, but if it's not set up and if it's not put in front of people, it doesn't matter. If they're not going to see it, all this work is going to go to waste. So it's super important.
I know so many people that literally run into that issue where they'll record several episodes of a podcast. They'll never even post it. And then they stop.
Right.
Of course they stopped because they never even posted it.
Yes.
The same thing happens with our video content we make for people all the time. We're like, are you going to post that stuff?
Where did it go?
You just paid money for this.
Yes.
Like, why aren't you going to post it?
Yes.
Oh, man, that can be the worst sometimes.
It is. It is. All right, number 3 is the scheduling. So
idea, setup, scheduling. Third one. Okay.
Yes. So schedule, that's kind of more along the lines of having a spot in your calendar. Mm-hmm. Why is that important?
Well, I think the big thing that I kind of like compare it to is an accountability partner.
Yep.
Like if this is something that you view as something valuable to your organization, like making consistent content, making a podcast, making short form content, if that is valuable to reaching your audience and growing your business, oftentimes we just get stuck in the weeds.
Yeah.
I mean, we understand this. We're starting this organization right now. We get stuck in the weeds all the time. And we have to be like certain that we are on top of all the things that we need to do.
Yeah.
And it feels like everything's urgent.
Right.
But what this creates is it says, hey, there is a consistent time on your calendar where you're going to come in, have a guest, tell a story, whatever it is, and you will create that content because, number one, you paid for it, and number two, it's already there on your calendar, and you know that you have to create something.
Yes.
So I think the biggest thing for us is we're both available, and they're booked for you, but we actually help you by saying, hey, you spent the time, you spent the money.
Right.
Like, you need to do this because it will actually grow your business.
Yes. And I don't want to, like, compare this too much to actual, like, relationships, because it is slightly different. But there is an element to where you have a relationship with your audience, right? And consistently showing up is the thing that will build trust.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you think about other relationships, the consistent ones is really where you get the most trust. And so that's super important.
So then we have the idea, we have the setup, we have scheduling. Now let's talk about the equipment. I'll talk about this one.
Yes.
This is my alley. I love this. So the big thing really is that, like, we have spent thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars on all the equipment that we have in our space. And we know that video podcasts are generally cost prohibitive to somebody who's trying to do them themselves.
Right.
Because usually that requires a full-time staffer whose only job is to manage and build a studio, buy all the gear, and then spend all the time editing and creating all this content. But because of the experience that you and I have, we can do this way, way, way faster than most other people can. And so when you walk into our space, you come in with professional microphones, with high-quality 4K footage being recorded on 3 cinema cameras.
Right.
You get high-quality audio. You get experienced engineers who know what they've been doing. Like, we've been doing, both of us have been working for over a decade each in these fields. And so, like, we understand how to make and produce the best quality content in a way that would probably take a while for most organizations to really overcome that barrier to begin with.
Yes.
You can start at really high quality and then just work on your story.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that's the part that's so helpful, is just like we're really trying to move everything out of the way so you can focus on what's important to you. Because I think there's this false narrative, I don't know, out there that, like, everybody's a content creator, so therefore you also have to be very skilled at video editing, very skilled at X, Y, and Z, right? And it's like, that, how about you be awesome at your thing and we can help you? Like,
Exactly.
And I think that's why it's like the equipment we're using is because Brian is really picky. No, is because we think there's something about honoring your audience. One of the things, so Brian talked about this earlier, how, you know, some people using their webcam, or maybe not a great microphone, or the framing's weird, or the lighting's weird, or blah, blah, blah. And I think it's so helpful to do everything you can to honor your audience in giving them something that is visually pleasing and that is audibly pleasing. So that way all they have to do is focus on what you're saying.
Yeah.
And
it does your brand a disservice if you have crappy quality.
Exactly.
And I mean, that was actually our next point. We're already talking about it, the production.
Yes.
But, like, that is key. Like, you need to represent your brand well.
Right.
And a lot of times that DIY stage does not represent it well.
Right.
And so on top of all this really nice equipment, you get the high production quality that represents your brand well, or maybe even elevates your brand in a way that you haven't been able to do before.
Right. Exactly. And then the last piece is distribution.
Oh, that's really tough. Yeah.
That, again, it's important to have everything set up, but then you really need to go through and figure out, okay, how am I going to actually make sure that the things we've recorded, the things that we have, get posted in the right ways, in the right frequency, yada, yada. And so yeah, it's just important. Make sure that what you have created gets seen in these different places.
Yeah.